Hi, my name is Jenny Gray. I teach at Howick Prep School in the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands. There are approximately 614 children in our school. Our school is an English medium school, and our first additional language are isiZulu and Afrikaans. There are 22 children in our class, 8 of which are Zulu speaking, and I have 2 Afrikaans speaking children. My challenge is that although I have a very small class, all of them have missed many months of school, and I found, because I have done two reading tests, that most of them are at least 6 months behind their chronological ages. So their reading ages are lagging way behind the chronological ages. Although many of my children can read fairly well, there is a small group who actually battle to decode words and understand them. And that is why I enjoy the Reading to Learn methodology, because it teaches children to read words and understand words within context, within the text. I did my Reading to Learn training in 2016. The Reading to Learn methodology focuses on helping learners to read with understanding, as well as deepening their knowledge of texts, how texts and sentences and words are put together. This is a snapshot of my children using Reading to Learn in a grade 3 classroom. We use the story of Fish Head Soup as our reading text. The story describes a woman called Mrs. Spat who is making fish head soup. The story has a lot of descriptive language in it, which is very useful, so the children could make really nice changes to the story. Mrs. Spat was making fish head soup. She was singing, fish head soup, fish head soup. I love, love, love fish head soup. Boil up the bones, boil up the eyes. There's nothing like a scoop of fish head soup. Spider was making a web, a huge, enormous, gigantic web. Spider knew when Mrs. Spat made fish head soup, zillions of flies came a buzz, buzz, buzzing. The basis of the story is the fish head soup, and we did it over a few days. The whole class took part. It was a fantastic activity, and in the end we actually had a story which everybody in the class had ownership of. This took about a week and a half to do, and then what I did was I typed out the story, and then we had children illustrating it. As you will see when you have watched the children read this little story to you, this was a group activity. It took about a week and a half to do together. So when we read through each page, and then we made changes as a class, we even voted on what events and characters had to be changed. When we changed the story, the children were really excited to leave the spider, which is a secondary character in the story, as a spider, although we did change him to a trapdoor spider. The little creatures that came visiting were butterflies. That I've got a large group of little girls, so butterflies won the vote.
Page 4. Mrs. B baked her pie and she hummed. Trapdoor Spider was making a tunnel, a large, browny, massive tunnel. Then those butterflies went flapping out the window, pulling the tunnel and trapdoor spider behind them. Trapdoor spider knew when Mrs. B baked honey pie. Trillions of butterflies came and zoom, zoom, zoom. Honey pie. Mrs. B was baking honey pie. She was humming, honey pie, I love, love honey pie. Bake the crust, cook up the honey syrup. There's nothing like a quarter of honey pie. Mrs. B skipped after the butterflies, slapped her whisk. She yelled, freeze those butterflies, hit, catch, capture those butterflies. Mrs. B skipped after the butterflies, slapped her whisk. She yelled, freeze those butterflies, hit, catch, capture those butterflies. A crowd of soccer players stared at the people sprinting by and they roared. Those people are as awkward as a bean in a sea. But they dashed after the butterflies too, and they sang, net those butterflies, crash, snap, capture those butterflies.
Okay, not too bad. Hi, I hope you enjoyed listening to the children read their story to you. Just a little bit of background. At the beginning of the year, I decided I'd like to actually see whether using the Reading to Learn methodology, how it impacted on the children's reading and comprehension levels. So what I did was we tested them. We administered the Bert and the Chanel reading and spelling tests. And then at the end of this year, I will actually test them again. For me, the most exciting thing was to have the children start to write their own stories. And the best example of this is actually this little story written by Hayley Stanley in my class. She's since left the school, but she left us a very sweet little story about my best friend. She and another child wrote the story and illustrated. So you'll see they've got very cute little pictures. This was totally unsupervised by me. They actually used their spare time to write their own story. I simply read it through and made some suggestions, for instance, capital letters and full stops, and also speech marks. And the result was a super little book, which then was donated to our library. So for me, that is actually the aim of Reading to Learn, to get kids to self-publish, to write their own stories. Thank you very much for watching the snapshot of my Reading to Learn experience. Thank you. Bye.